Today's presentation is the use of guided discovery as part of the coach's toolkit, and it is my pleasure to have Terry Agrawaji, the Technical Director of Coaching for Mississippi Soccer Association, presenting today's topic. Terry is the Technical Director of Mississippi Soccer Association and a consultant for the NSCAA's Club Standards Project. After a successful playing career at Reinhardt College, he became an assistant coach at Keenshaw State University. He then moved to Sugar Land in Texas, where he served as the DOC for Fusion Soccer Club and was on the South Texas Youth Soccer Association instructional staff. Terry holds a master's degree in sports management and a doctorate degree in education. He holds an NSCAA's Premier Diploma, a USSF A license, and a UEFA B badge. He is the author of Bridging the Gender Gap in Sports Leadership and co-author of Developing a Model Soccer Club. Welcome, Terry, to the presentation.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that there. Welcome, everybody. And just like Dave said earlier, if you don't mind, type in your questions as we go along. It's going to be short and sweet. That way we can address your questions at the end of the presentation. Now, for most of you who have taken some of the NSCAA courses and also the U.S. Youth Soccer National Youth License, guided discovery will be familiar to you. Okay? What I'm going to try to do today is to tie that with your coaching style in terms of how will it look when you use the guided discovery based on your coaching style or your leadership style. There are more than 19, some could argue, of different coaching styles around the world in existence. 6 major ones to be precise, but when I looked at every one of them, when it comes to soccer, for the most part, here are the 3 major ones that you will fall in. Okay, some of you would probably use maybe all 3 of these styles at some point during your sessions, your careers. Try to think about yourself using this style, how it would affect your use of guided discovery. I won't go through this list. I'm sure many of you already know what some of these. The most popular one there will be the command style, made popular by the legendary Bob Knight, the basketball coach. As we look at this, think about what happens on a regular Saturday morning in your local club or even a training session. Most coaches in the United States pretty much fall around that category, using the command style. We want it done the exact same way, with all kids, giving no room at all for the kids to be creative. First, what is guided discovery? I mean, I'm sure many of you would know, because I'm sure some of you are teachers by trade. Guided discovery is just the use of questions to get out the best in a kid. What do you want this kid to learn? How can I frame it in form of a question to get that kid to participate in the learning process? Now, these questions has to be guided, like I said earlier, and age appropriate. Otherwise, it will be too difficult for them to figure it out. So as we go through these slides, I will give examples of what age-appropriate questioning should look like. And there's no doubt in your mind, I'm sure any of you listening, that the use of guided discovery has its benefits. I have a few of them listed here, and you can read through, but I must say that when I played in college, even at the college level, there are some things that I did as a player, but I didn't know why I was doing them. It It took me a while, maybe a year later, before I figured out. So trying to help your players understand what you want them to learn on the soccer field, you have to find a way to use your questioning to get them to be active learners, okay? Real-time active learners. So they are not just passing the ball out wide because the coach said I should do it, but they need to know why they're doing it. That would empower them and, of course, help them in making better decisions. And many of you would know from your regular training sometimes, maybe in the game, that some of our players are very robotic. They are very robotic. They know when the ball is coming down the flank, we have to push it out wide. Okay? It's not always true. We don't have to go out wide all the time. So with the help of guided discovery, your players should be able to, at some point, learn what you are telling them to do in real life, and they can adjust now. They can adjust as to what's happening with the opponent, where the ball is, where are my teammates. And guided discovery would help even for a U6 player. Now, the question is, what kind of a question will you be asking a U6 player, right? It could be as simple as what part of your foot do you want to make a short pass with? If you want to see your teammates in front of you, what do you have to do? Okay? Those are simple questions, but they are also real. It's practical. The player would understand what you're talking about. And most importantly, this is the part that I think is key. When you ask a player, where should you aim when shooting on goal? And they give you an answer, make sure you follow up by show me. So that way they are not only listening, hearing, they are actually doing it. So with those three learning objectives, they're hearing it, they're repeating it, and they are doing it in terms of a demo, it will stick. And of course, for the older players that you will have, here are some questions you could ask them. Why should we press high up the field? How can we switch the point of attack quickly or quicker? If you want your teammates to go forward, where do you want to pass the ball? Now, it will be a lot easier for some of us as coaches to say, hey, pass the ball forward. We are just solving the problem for the players when we do that, don't we? Okay? So instead of just telling the kid where to pass the ball, why not frame it to where he will now have to think about what he's doing? And few players that I have spoken to about the use of guided discovery, they always tell me they are so scared to respond to a coach's question. And the reason being, they're scared of being wrong. They're scared of being wrong. They don't want to be a laughing stock to the teammates just in case they don't get it, they don't get the right answer. That's why it's very crucial for you as a coach. It's very crucial that we're using these guided questions not to embarrass the players, but rather to help them in the learning process. And that could simply mean that if you ask a question and they cannot get it, you try to open it up, maybe to the entire group. And even when you get some response from the players or a player that is not really accurate, okay, we don't have to tell him, no, you're wrong, right away. It could be, okay, that's another way of doing it. Can you show me some other way we can pass the ball? So that way, we are not really picking winners and losers based on the kind of questions we ask, but instead encouraging them to participate. Okay? And here's a few responses you as a coach could use. Okay? Good idea. Can you show me? And maybe when a player actually gives you a good answer, there's nothing wrong in making everybody know that's a good answer. Great, John. I like it. But now, how can we do it faster? So now, the player will feel emboldened, will feel empowered that the coach likes his answer, and the entire team will be more willing now to participate as you begin to use the guided discovery. Now, keep in mind, guided discovery is just one, I repeat, just one of many tools you have in your toolkit. You have a lot of them in your toolkits. Along with all those, I'm asking because in coaching pedagogy, it's been proven that guided questions helps the learners. It helps to drive home the learning objective. And I believe as coaches, we should also use this for our players. Now, here are some few things as a coach you want to keep in mind. Again, there's always a pitfall. There's pitfalls whenever we coach, right? There are some few techniques here to ask these questions. Now, make sure that at least you have the attention of the players. It will amaze you how many times coaches are talking to players, but the players are standing behind him. So you need to take a proper position, make sure everybody can see your faces, your sunglasses off. You can see their faces and they can see your face, your eyeballs. There's eye contact as you go about asking these questions. And you also have to figure out when is a good time to use guided discovery. On a goal kick, throw in, maybe, a water break, or even during the game. We put the player aside to ask, maybe. So you as a coach have to pick out the best time to use guided discovery. And here's the one that a lot of young coaches, as I travel around doing the U.S. youth soccer license, national youth, it's coaches tend to ask too many questions, too many sequential questions at one time. That will confuse some players. It will become meaningless if you have to ask 6 questions when they haven't even answered the first one. So be very picky and make sure you ask one question at a time. And in my opinion, I would even ask that you give them chance to show you. Give them time not only to respond, but to actually demo it. That way it will stick. And of course, don't be scared to rephrase your questions. Because sometimes we may ask questions that will just go over the player's head, like, whoa, they don't understand it. It's okay to rephrase it. It's okay to dummy down the question just a little bit, so that way the players would understand exactly what you want. In conclusion, as a coach, you will at some point use several coaching styles, leadership style, whatever you want to call it. Knowing those ahead of time makes you an effective coach. Command style coach, for example, is very, very good in getting players back on track. And the cooperative style could be something you want to use when you're teaching a new skill, maybe around your technical warm-up or your small-sided activity before you get to the big picture of the game. You could use that to introduce new technique, new style. Then, of course, the submissive style of coaching. And I know for sure I use that a lot when I coached at the college level. I coached a girls' college team. And it's very effective. It's very effective. So you as a coach have to know your players and be able to bring out these tools from your toolkit at the right time. And of course, you have to understand the use of both the low and high order questions. And you have to know how to apply them based on the age group you're coaching, the ability of your players, and what you are trying to get across. I believe as coaches, if we just make that little change or add that little tool, the tool of guided discovery, into our daily repertoire, it's just a matter of time before it becomes a second nature, and we'll be very, very, very effective with our players. I will pass this on now to Dave. I think he should be getting questions from you guys already, and I'll be happy to jump on those questions. And if I cannot get to all of them, we will put them up at group page, LinkedIn, and I will respond appropriately. Dave.
Thank you, Terry. So just as a reminder, for those of you joining the webinar for the first time, you will receive a complimentary copy of Play Like Manchester United that will come direct from our partner for this series, Soccer Coach Weekly. So we will now turn to questions, but just as a reminder, you will receive an email from me tomorrow or later on today that will have a link to this webinar as a recording, and also the questions that you've asked will appear through LinkedIn, and I'll send you a link for that as well. So Terry, let's go to the first question. Jillian asked a question: in general, what percentage of coaching instruction should be guided discovery with young players such as 6- and 7-year-olds?
And that's a good question. You know, I would be very wary in giving you percentage, although I will now, but just understand this is not scientific. But I would say maybe 15 to 20%, because at the end of the day, the instruction is the game, the playing of the game. So I don't want you as a coach to sit out there asking questions for 20 minutes, okay? It has to be very selective. You have to think about whatever you want to say, then put it in the form of a question. That way, the kids are learning, actively learning as we practice. I would not want to spend most of your time just asking questions. The kids should be playing. They should be playing the game. While they're playing, as you begin to give them your coaching points, then we'll begin to frame those into questions. And again, let's be honest, 6 years, U6s, some would argue they're really not playing soccer at that point, because we know based on their psychosocial and cognitive ability, they will not pass the ball. Okay, so we know that. So if they are not passing the ball, then some would argue they're really not playing real soccer, quote unquote. Okay, so we have to be careful about not asking too many questions at that young age. Next.
Yeah, so Christine, it's a good follow-up question to what you've just said there. She actually asks, what is the appropriate amount of time to spend during an hour session talking?
Quite frankly, I would rather you don't talk at all, but we know you have to instruct, right? So I would say 5 to 10 seconds to get the ball rolling for each activity. Now, while the game is going on, now you could now pull out players to give instructions if you think they need to work on something else or do something different. Or if you think that the entire team has to make a change, you can stop everybody, make your point, and step out. But remember, my key is 5 to 10 seconds max. We don't want you in there lecturing like I'm doing now. I'm lecturing. That's not what we want on the soccer field. We want them to be playing. So if you can jump in, ask your question, get the answer, you say, brilliant, well done, now let's play. You step out. So the quicker you can jump in and jump out, the better. Next.
Yeah, so James asked the question, are there better or worse times during the progression of a session to use guided discovery?
That's another good question. Quite frankly, I don't see a worse time. Are there some times that are better than others? Yes. For example, when there's a natural stoppage, that's a great time. Okay, freeze, everybody, freeze. All right, now, the ball is going upfield. What do we need to do as a defensive group? What do we need to do attacking? Then you begin to get our answers from there and say, okay, let's do it. Let's go and play. So natural stoppages, in my opinion, is the best time to step in and use your guided discovery to lecture. Keep in mind, the less intrusive you are as a coach, the more time your players get to really play the game. And as you know, the game is the best teacher.
Let's take a couple more. David asks, how much guided discovery can be useful during a game for high school age players?
I would say a lot. At this age, I think they are matured enough to cognitively understand what you're asking. High-end question, high-order question could be appropriate for that age group. I would say go for it. In a game, go for it. But now, keep in mind, during the game, the players have to concentrate. So you have to choose when you want to be asking questions. Make sure natural stoppages is good. Do not ask Julia a question when she has the ball on her feet. That becomes a distraction. So you have to choose and pick when you need to ask these questions. And again, the game could be going on, and you could pull little Julia aside and say, hey, listen, you get beat to the right a lot. What do you think you can do to prevent that from happening? Julia tells you what she thinks. Okay, good, try it. Let's do that. And you push her back in the game. So the game could still be going on, and you can quickly do that as long as the ball is not in the area that Julia will need to get involved. So you have to be very smart as to the time you choose to question your players. But yes, you could do it during the game, smart, sharp, brief, 2-3 seconds, and move on.
Okay, let's take one more question from John. And he asks, can you provide an example of submissive style coaching?
Well, the submissive style of coaching, it's pretty much what we want to call the babysitter type of coaching, which is pretty much bringing the ball to the game, to the field, and say, hey, we're playing 6v6 and play. 40 minutes later, stop, water break, and play again, and off we go. We're done for the day. We'll go home. Pretty much, that's what it is. The submissive style, you allow the players to dictate what they want to do, how they want to do it, and for how long. Now, you cannot do that all season long. However, will that work sometimes with a bunch of high school players or college players? You come in on a Tuesday and say, hey, girls, ladies, guys, here's the soccer ball, figure it out and play. Yes, it could work. It could work to get their morals up. It could work to give them some kind of recovery time, if you will. So that's a typical example. Again, none of these styles, in my opinion, none of these styles you should do for a year or a week. This, you have to pretty much alternate your style based on what you want to achieve, who you're coaching, and what you